Okay. Next up is Josh Fleming with Vine Me.
Yeah, right. It's like, got more kids there, though, I think. So I was going to make this really big grand entrance, dump these photos all over the floor. And I told my wife about it, and she said, no, you can't do that. So, honey, if you're watching on streaming, which she's not. So she didn't want me to ruin the photos. And so I want you to imagine that these photos are all over the floor. And this is one of, I don't know, probably 30 boxes that I have of photos. And this is my life through photos. And the challenging thing for me is they make no sense. They lack context. And so the title of the presentation is Why Context is King. And hopefully I'll be able to convince you of that today. My name is Josh Fleming. I'm the co-founder of VineMe.com. We position ourselves as the timeline for the world. And we are a photo sharing site that allows people to crowdsource and define our world through tags, time, places, and people. And I promised Deb I wouldn't use slides, but I do have to introduce Megan Hilger here. She's going to be Vanna White today. She is much better. And love the shoes, too, right? I mean, look at the shoes. There's all kinds of context with those shoes. And so I promised no slides, and these are the only props I have. Otherwise, I end up looking like Carrot Top, red-haired guy, too many props, that sort of thing. So I appreciate it, Megan. So in order to convince you that context is now king, I really have to share the kings of our past, if you will. And so I'm going to do that, obviously, through a timeline. And Mr. Boyd, when he was speaking, really did a nice job of framing up his past, Carter administration, and all through the decades. And I love that about him because I didn't know very much about him, but he gave me some context through time. So before context is king, in 1988, cash is king, right? This was like the big thing that came out, cash is king. It was used in '88 by the CEO of Volvo after the stock market crash. And cash is king kind of refers to the importance of cash flow and the overall fiscal health of business. In 1995, unique visitors are king. So Al Gore invents the internet, right? And it leads to the commercialization of the web. So you have companies using different kinds of metrics to determine who was winning online, and the king of the day was truly measured by unique visitors. Megan, if you just want to throw those on the floor, feel free. You can add dramatic effect to this as much as you want. 1997. So in 1997, commenting is king, and often overlooked is a site called slashdot.org. And it was one of the first real social media sites. It was kind of positioned or coined as news for nerds, stuff that matters. So imagine that, the nerds actually, creating social media, which we all probably did. And in 1999, commenting is king, and now kind of funny. I don't know how many of you know or remember or actually go to fark.com, but it was the first real news site made up of contributors. So users could go on to fark.com, they could upload photos, people would greenlight them, other users would greenlight these these news stories. You see where my head is at with the photos, right? So people could upload news stories to Fark, and they would be greenlit by other users on Fark, and then people would post comments. They would, banter back and forth. It was really kind of where the first guy who yelled first, kind of came from, and now he's on YouTube, and hopefully he goes away. But it was a nice place for people to kind of comment on the masses. 2000, page views are king. So unique visitors weren't really enough, and the commercialization of the web became more sophisticated over time. After all, page views equaled, back in the day, the most important thing for us back then was ad inventory, selling banner space. I had the privilege of working at Dice.com, and we had about 200 or 300 million page views per month, and we would always sell out those pages. And the challenging thing for me was, how do I find ways to get more page views? How do I make you have to click somewhere extra? So I was kind of the guy that was messing up user interface at the time. But we were looking for ways to create more revenue, and we did that. And so we were always talking page views. In 2003, business connections are king. So LinkedIn launched in May 2003 as a business networking site. And they don't get a lot of credit, I don't think, in terms of being a social site, but it's exactly what they are. They started businesses networking between each other. Again, I think they kind of get overlooked, but they really kind of just stopped at a business networking site. And then in 2004, friends are king, right? Facebook reached 1 million users in less than 9 months. All of a sudden, connecting with friends, even random people from second grade, was now the thing to do. And so not just connecting with businesses like LinkedIn, but connecting with friends and family around the globe. And in 2004 still, yes, content became king. According to Technorati, in July 2003, there were 500,000 blogs. And by September 2004, just a little over a year later, that number of blogs had reached 4 million. So people found that they could have a voice online. People found that they could put their discussion topics out there and then would get response and get reaction. And so content became king, and to a large extent it still is. In 2005, experience is king. And so seriously, what did we ever do without YouTube? I mean, I'm on YouTube like 5-6 times a day. I get on YouTube, I don't know why I'm on YouTube. 30 minutes later, how did I get on YouTube? But it's that experience. It's that user-generated content that draws us there. It's that what can I find next? It's that discovery. And it wasn't network entertainment that was really educating us or entertaining us on YouTube. It was people like Chad Vader, the day shift manager. It was Chocolate Rain and I Like Turtles and hide your kids, hide your wife, that guy. I mean, that kind of stuff, for whatever reason, draws us to YouTube. It keeps us there. And I think we enjoy the experience, and I think that's why that happens. In 2006, I'll make the argument that sharing is king. And what Twitter accomplished with its launch in 2006 went beyond what Facebook did. We were no longer just sharing information or news statuses or what we were doing with our friends. We were sharing with strangers and strangers that had similar interests. We were creating friends and relationships. And some of the things I've heard here is I've got real friends on Twitter, and a lot of those relationships happened on Twitter. And so I kind of think that Twitter did a lot of what LinkedIn couldn't do, which was you got to learn on Twitter from people you didn't necessarily have to know. And to me, that was pretty valuable and certainly a great discovery process. 2007, mobile is king. And I think to some extent it still is. I mean, you look at everybody here on their phones, tweeting. I didn't get the iPad presentation memo. I don't have an iPad yet. I'm kind of sad about that. But the release of the iPhone in 2007 made everything I've talked about to this point so much easier and so much more personal. If you think about what you can do with mobile, from personal apps and specifically location-based apps, it's changing everything. And so one of my favorite quotes is a guy named Scott Kuby, who also goes by Scott Rocketship from Des Moines-based BitMethod, says, "Mobile is utility contextualized." And that sounds pretty fancy, but it basically means that without a purpose, without any real content, mobile is less valuable and your message kind of falls flat. And so if you think about, say, something random like a set of house keys, that doesn't make any sense to you. There is no context to that. But now if I put you in front of your front door with your house keys, all of a sudden you have this big aha moment. And so that's what mobile is really successful at doing. And in 2010, location-based services, right? Foursquare, Gowalla, Facebook has their Facebook places. I think it's interesting. I don't necessarily know that it's king yet. It's trying to be king. It's trying to be relevant. It's trying to push the envelope. But a lot of people, I think, are still a little bit scared about their privacy, which is becoming a bigger issue. And the masses truly haven't really adopted it. And so I think there's a place for it. It just hasn't truly evolved, if you will. So where are we now? We're in Des Moines at the Stoner Theater. May 9th, 2011. So while I think for a while the story has really been all about social media, I think a lot of people think we've kind of reached the pinnacle, if you will, of the social media story. And I think we've only just begun to scratch the surface. A lot of people talking today about the future and a lot of things that are happening in different areas, but I think we're just beginning to kind of make a mark on the industry. And so here's why I think context is king. Facebook and LinkedIn are great for connecting you with people. Twitter is great at connecting you with people as well as information. Mobile is great at connecting you with people, information, and sometimes location. And location-based services are great at connecting you with people and areas. But I have to think that some of these are missing some real key ingredients. All of them are missing some real key ingredients. And so they fail to kind of bring everything together. And why is that? Why has no site really figured out a way to bring all the things that are important in our life together? So some connect people, some connect places, some provide tags, and none of them are devoted to time. As I mentioned before, VineMe is a photo sharing site based on a timeline. And so, as I told you, this mess of box makes, these photos make no sense to me, and I certainly wouldn't expect them to make sense to you. But I would ask you to just imagine for a second that I'm a picture. And I know that that's kind of scary, but imagine like a big picture frame. I need like a 11 by 17 or something like that. So if you walked in the room or just started watching this on live stream, you'd have no context. You'd have no frame of reference for what was happening here. But if you surround me with time like May 9th, 2011, if you surround me with tags like Josh Fleming, Redhead, Ginger, Speaker, Father, Vine Me, surround me with places like Des Moines, Iowa, Stoner Theater. And lastly, surround me with people like the brand chef, Angela Myers, Ben Stone, Emily Beckman, Caroline Jones, Kenzie Smith. They were all here right now at this point in time, and so it adds to my story, and I hopefully add to their story. So doing this gives you context. Surrounding me with a picture with time, tags, places, and people helps me tell a story as well as your story, and a story hopefully that now makes sense, a story with actual context. And through crowdsourcing and content and archiving of the world around us through photos, we truly believe we can archive the world. My message to you simply is that I am Vine Me. She's got the shirt too. But more importantly, so are you. You can be Vine Me as well, and I hope to see you on the site. Thank you very much. And I got to give a last shout to these two, Deb and Nathan. You guys have been getting all kinds of applause on Twitter. I don't know if it's been heard here or said here, but fantastic job. Unbelievable job.
Thank you. In true Iowa fashion, we're done early. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it.